I'm the executive editor Wednesday, February, bleak afternoon of the 9th day of February, and I am visiting with Professor W.E. Nash, an esteemed citizen and a retired educator in our city. Now, this isn't just an interview. This is a conversation between friends of long standing, and I consider it a personal delight to come and visit in the home and to hold a conversation with Professor Nash. Good afternoon, Professor Nash.
Fine, how are you?
Oh, I'm just doing fine. And I want to tell you on behalf of the Historical Society and for the organization that is working for the protection of antiquities in the state of Tennessee and to keep a record and things that way of people and their activities, how happy we are to come and talk to you today.
Glad to have you.
You know, I guess we'll start with questions, but anytime, Professor, that you have something that you want to say that doesn't maybe touch that question, you just come along and tell me about it. I guess the first thing that we would really like to know, and I think that I know a great deal about your activities and what you've done. Of course, in the field of education, you are recognized. Of course, in the field of church, you're recognized, and you have filled in with civic work in our community through the years. But I think that something that has been left really unsaid and that should be said has been the major contribution that you have made toward the fine racial relationship in this community. Too many times, Professor, I think maybe that people shun this subject, but I know that you have had a great role of having understanding between the races in this city. We have never had any serious trouble, and I, for one, think that a great deal of it lies at the doorstep of your concern and interest and on the shoulders of the responsibility that you carried during some times. How about this?
Well, it has been my prime objective since I've been in the public eye. It has been to see to it that as far as I was able to make it pleasant and harmony exist between all people, especially between the blacks and the whites. Of course, I was born in Virginia back in the time that segregation was flourishing in its highest, and I very early in life found out that it didn't pay to be at each other's throat all the time, but harmony and cooperation, you could get farther with that. I was hired out a long time with white boys and families who had white boys. We played together, went in the creek together, and I learned that the other person is not any meaner than you make him.
Correct.
Because if you mean, well, he has to be mean. And so I enjoyed with the white boys and colored boys and all that. And of course, after I grew up, I took as my model, one of my models, Booker T. Washington, and You know what a great life he lived,
Surely.
and how he worked in the field of union and cooperation. The time that the black people were being watched very closely as to what they were going to do with themselves after they had come out of slavery, the South and the North too.
Right.
Wanted to know what course they were going to take. Were they going to take the course of the Indian and fight back? Or were they going to go back to Africa? Or were they going to go north or whatnot? And so he, in his speech in Atlanta in 1895, at the convention down there, not convention, but it's exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
He used as his subject there, let you bucket down where you are. And after that speech, the South and the North come to the conclusion that there was a man with the right attitude towards the South and other parts of the country, and therefore they at once accepted him as a leader of the black race.
And you modeled your life after his precepts and principles, and I think that I can easily say for the record, since that you came into Athens. By the way, when did you first come into Athens?
I came into Athens in July the 15th, 1921.
And ever since that you have been here, you have really emulated the principles that you had set out for yourself in the great Booker T. Washington to follow, and you have done it. The reason I want us to touch that is that although we have had a pleasant atmosphere here through the years, you and I both know that there were a few times when hotheads on either side could have caused us trouble.
Yes, sir.
And I want it recorded as I sit here in the home of Professor Nash, an incident that he did that helped, the reason I know, stabilize. We were visited by some people from Chicago whom I don't think might have had the best interest for the community. They were they were wanting to have things move faster maybe. And this man, Professor Nash, escorted those gentlemen down to the Southern Depot on a train which was known as number 42 and put them on and sent them back to Chicago. Am I right?
Yes, sir. They wanted to buy a pistol. I had a Savage automatic, and they offered me a good price for it. And I told them no, they didn't need that. But what they need to do was to take leave. And so, of course, I won't say any more about it.
Well, I know that we're not going to dwell on it, but he came to my office the next morning and told me about the incident, and I've always been thankful that W.E. Nash was here.
And
Because had he not been, we could have...
We've had a number of those cases.
Yes, we have, and each time you acted as the mediator, and as you said, you proved both to the white and to the black race that there wasn't races, that it was persons and people.
That's right.
And that's the creed that you've had, and it has worked. By the way, you were, of course, principal.
Pardon me.
All right.
Hold your point, but I want to say this too for the officers of Athens. When Castro, he was in that lineup,
Yes.
And he came into Athens here with the full intent of stirring up a lot of commotion.
Casper.
Casper. Yeah.
Casper.
Yeah. And the law downtown just picked him up and in other words,
I remember the day.
And escorted him to the line and said, now, down that way you may do that, but you can't do that in Athens.
I remember that. I remember that.
And so,
And they also had the backing, though, of people like yourself and others that we could have. But that's great. As you said, holding to the point, it isn't any really a particular point. I do think that I want you to say a little bit of word for us and tell me a little bit about J.L. Cook, for whom the school was named that you so ably handled for so many years. Tell me a little bit about J.L. Cook.
J.L. Cook, J.L. Cook was a little boy that was reared or brought up by Uncle Nels Geddes, I think his name. Uncle Nels had a dance hall down there where our church is, at the
United Presbyterian, there on the
on
north
that corner.
Uh-huh.
North Jack. So he reared this little boy, and very early in his life, it was discovered that he had potential and he was destined to do something that could give him a chance. And the white people of Athens first picked him up. He would clean up for the old man there and sell ginger snaps back in that day. And so they picked him up and sent him to Nashville. At that time they had a school over there. And he stayed over there a while, and while he was over there, the United Presbyterian Church saw him, and they picked him up and took him to Knoxville College. Carried him through Knoxville College. The
Yes,
United Presbyterian Board carried him through Knoxville College and took him on to the seminary, Theological Seminary, Pittsburgh, and he got his degrees, college, and also his degree in the ministry at the Theological Seminary in Pittsburgh, and he showed to them such promise. They accepted him or asked him would he come back to Athens, and they would select Athens as one of the locations.
That's the people at the seminary of the United Presbyterian Church.
The board, the United Presbyterian Freedmen's Board.
Right.
The Freedmen's Board, and it was under the Home Missionary Department.
Right.
Of the Home of the Freedmen's Board. So he accepted it gladly and came back here and started in 1888 to build the church, the United Presbyterian Church, First United Presbyterian Church, and Academy of Athens, known as the Academy of Athens. It was back in those days we used to have what is known normal.
Yes, I've heard the word.
4-year high school. Right?
Yes.
And so the United Presbyterian Board, to their credit, they sponsored, paid all the teachers, and paid the pastor, and took care of all the incidentals. In other words, they put a normal here under the name of the Academy of Athens.
And let's inject a thought right here just a minute, and then you come back to this.
Yes.
Let's locate that academy for our people of today. It was about where, pretty close to where today Laycock Funeral Home is, isn't it? Or maybe a little further?
No, it was
all right, where was it?
Wilson, the black Wilson home over there.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's the lot.
That's the lot.
That's
I knew that it was there in that vicinity of the Southern Depot. All right, so go ahead and tell us about the normal now.
And so they paid the teachers, paid all incidentals, even bought the coal. And all a teacher had to do was to get his bed cover. They had mattresses on the bed. Now the reason I know this, see, I was one of the last of the group to descend here.
All right, sir.
And so
they use good judgment then too.
And so that went on from 1888 to 1908. And in 1908, now they had a good 4-year high school, known as the
This academy.
And they supplied, of course, the teaching force in the black schools throughout the county here, in Monroe County and around. Because you see, then if you could get a person through a high school, well, he was a real teacher, you know.
Oh, yes.
and so they supplied all that up to 1908. 1908, the United Presbyterian Church and the Zion Methodist Church got in a little squabble. And so the Zion then pulled all of the Zion students out of the academy, and they built a little school up there on the Zion Hill up there, Free Hill they call it.
Yes.
And that cut the school back down to the 9th grade. And from 1908 to 1926, they carried on only 9 grades.
Instead of the full four,
Instead of
the normal.
full year, no. And so in 1926, the building burned.
Yes,
And
I remember that.
So when the building burned, of course, the board decided that the city and county, they were able to start to work for the blacks. And so they then built the Athens Industrial School, they called it first.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when they built the Athens Industrial School, then, and we went to get a name for it, we named it J.L. Cook for this boy who had
Made good.
Made good from Athens, born, raised here, and went off and made good. And he carried on this school from 1888 to 1900. In 1900, he was called to Henderson, North Carolina, and up there, he was made principal of a bigger school connected with the board. And I feel like Athens, I know Athens owed the United Presbyterian Board a great deal of thanks for the work that they
Not only giving us the Athens Academy and not only for having it, but we're glad that, because you came here under their auspices too,
Yes,
didn't
I
you?
came here as assistant principal to Reverend Wilson in 1921.
Now, 21
And I taught them till 26
in the building that burned.
in the building that burned.
Now then, that of course gets us into this field of education. By the way, pause a minute and we'll come back to the Cook School. It's quite a coincidence, I think, that Athens had a bishop one time, Bishop
Bishop R.J.
R.J. Cook.
That's right.
He spelled his name C-O-O-K-E,
That's correct.
and J.L. Cook. Was Bishop Cook a friend of yours too?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Of course, he was too high to call a friend. He was somebody I knew real well.
Well, all right, that's okay.
So, well, anyhow, he was a friend of everybody. Now, Bishop Cook, Uncle George, Uncle George. Well, anyhow.
You'll think of it in a minute. I don't know how in the world that you rattle off these dates of 1895 and 1888 and how long, 10 years. It kind of amazes me. I have to look at the calendar and carry a notebook now to get it down. You've got it. So you'll get his name correctly.
Well, anyhow, he told me, Uncle George Henderson,
I knew you
Uncle
would.
George Henderson told me that he and Bishop Cook carried the mortar to build Trinity Church. Bishop Cook was working his way to the school, and he become one of the greatest bishops in the Methodist Episcopal Church. And now the reason I say that, I was in New York in 1907, and he spoke in New York for President Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt would dispatch him to places that he couldn't get there to speak. He'd send Bishop Cook.
Said Bishop Cook.
Yeah. And I heard him speak there, and well, I was carried away with it, of course. And then I didn't hear him anymore until 1918. These United Presbyterian Board, you know, as I mentioned a while ago,
Yes.
they have schools all the way to Camden, Alabama, and to Norfolk, Virginia, under the auspices of the old Tennessee Presbytery. But anyhow, in 1918, the board ordered us. I was then teaching here. No, I was in college then. But they ordered the teachers of these schools all to come to Knoxville College and have a week's Bible class, a Bible study. And the teachers all out of Knoxville College, the black teachers,
Right.
all met out at the college. I guess he had something like 200 or 300 teachers, black teachers from up and down here. And they got him to speak. He came out there, and he was the most dignified speaker you've ever seen.
Yes.
He was a wonder. And so he spoke there that day to these teachers, and his subject was the things that remain. And I wish you could have heard it. And he spoke, well, he still carried away again. so the next time I run into him, as I said, is we were having a big speaking down at the courthouse down here in 1929. He had retired then, I'm sure that. And Judge Bishop Cook and Judge Allen were the principal speakers.
Yes.
And he uttered a prophecy that night, that day, that it turned out to be a prophecy. He used these words. He said, men and women, or friends, he said, today, America is at its zenith. And he said, it's something going to happen. That was 1929.
Mm-hmm.
And almost to the minute, America started going down. Just
came the crash of Wall Street and our depression.
That's right, right on down through.
Our depression.
And so I thought about that so much.
Well, you mentioned there, I think it's quite an interesting thing that we had two Athens boys at different times growing up with the name of Cook that have left a great imprint.
That's right.
On the community.
That's correct.
Because, of course, the school, they carried his name, although it has been integrated into other schools, that doesn't change the impact that the people made. And, of course, Bishop Cook, as you said, made a great impact on education. Right.
Books and everything else. Now, here's something I want to straighten out right there.
All right.
And that's this. We have Cook Memorial Church over there. And we have Cook School.
Yes.
And we have Cook Drive. Now those, the Cook Memorial Church is a memorial to Bishop Cook.
I see.
And the Cook High School and the other one is to Jake Cook.
Jake Cook. When we said that, and you said he made a prediction, I guess that that was a prophecy almost.
Yes.
That leads us really into the subject. You were going through after the academy burned in 26, and you started the school up there, and then the depression really hit us through there. Tell me just a little. I know of some of the struggle that you had because I was here during the years of the depression too, you know. Like I get a charge now. I see these young people, you know, go in to buy these jeans, and they got to have a certain name, and they got a patch, and they pay for the patch, and they pay for the fringe. Well, I wore some jeans to Tennessee Wesleyan that the patches were real, and I was rather glad that we had them. But I know the struggle that you went through up there, because I had the privilege of sharing some experiences with you, which we'll touch in a minute. But tell us a little bit how that you groped with these things when we didn't have any money and we didn't have any. How did you operate that school?
Well, everybody was so kind and cooperated so well. I mentioned in another review how the two boards work together.
That's true.
You see, the city and county got together and formed a contract that one would pay so much and the other would pay so much, and they stayed together throughout the life of the school, and I never heard anyone say anything that they were at any difference in everything just went right along. So now let's pick up things about it. Now take the student body.
All right.
The student body, when I took over Cook, we had 150 students. And I had in mind at that very time to have a 4-year high school for Athens. Well, we couldn't get them many students around here. And the board was so good that when we went to them with the fact that if we could have some little dormitories, let the children come in from the county and bring their groceries and stay there and go back Saturday night and Friday night and come back Monday morning and so forth. And the board was, as I said a while ago, they were so cooperative. They readily bought 2 buildings up there. And so we had one man sent his granddaughter down here with 25 cents to board a whole week. And we had to work that out somehow. That's one thing that happened. See, the money was scarce. Then, now as to one of the other things that we needed 2 more rooms. And as it grew, you see. And so we went to the board, and the board said they didn't have it. But they would give $2,500 apiece. That is, the city board would give $2,500, and the county board would give $2,500. So we went to the PWA or WPA, whichever one.
WPA, right.
And asked for
labor?
$5,000.
Oh, yes, for matching funds.
Matching funds, yes.
Uh-huh.
And so they turned us down, the PWA did. And so I went to Mr. Hugh Holback.
Yes, I remember. Athens Cleaning Mill.
I talked with Mr. Huback about it. He said, well, Professor, what kind of room do you want? I said, we want a standard room. It's supposed to be 20 by 30. And he said, well, let me check over a little bit. So he checked over a little bit. And he said, you can get $5,000? I said, certainly can. I'll build it for that. And so he built the 2 rooms for $5,000 that had been estimated at $10,000. But when we didn't get $10,000, we built it for the 5. And
that's an interesting. Well, now these are the things that, as I said, that Heaven, and although you are a little modest about it, I doubt very seriously if we had anybody else that would have gotten Mr. Hugh Holback to build that for that price. You did something else at that school up there that I heard some folks talking about it. I think that during this discussion that the Historical Society and schools are all searching during this Depression time, and you talked to somebody and got it, but I want you to tell me just a little bit about this too. You actually started something there with your students that today we call on-the-job training.
yes, that's right.
And you started that here at Cook. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, of course, as we said in the beginning, right along through that time, everybody's trying to get a hold of a little dime or something to buy some food, you know.
I know.
And we had a lot of girls, those girls that I mentioned, you know, come from out in the country and we have to have a little money. And so I went to, I guess I'll say we, I don't like to say I. We went to the missionary side in town and made this plea to them. They said, now, we have some girls up there and they want to work. But our idea about work is this, that if I invite somebody or ask somebody to come in and clean a room for me, I don't want to stand over them and say, move this and sit that over there, bring this over here, or anything like that. But I wanted to be able to walk into that room and you go on about your business, and in a little while you go back there and that room is clean. And I said, now we'll make this proposition with you. We'll send you a girl, and if you don't pay them, that's all right. You just take them and see that they work that room properly. And then they'll come on back. And then after we have gone through this program, this way, then we'll be ready then to let you have some girls, and all you have to do is just invite them in. Well, the missionary ladies took on to the idea, and we sent the girls as we promised. But I'll say this for the ladies, they paid them more than they would have paid them if they had a charge, even though they were training them, you see. So this job lasted for a couple of years, something like that, maybe more than that. About 5 years we worked. President Hale from Old State College came over and said, Nash said, you ought to, this is a good program. And I said, well, I'm glad, Mr. Hale. And so he said, I'll send us to Clay over here to check with you about this. In the meantime, Mr. Upshaw from down in Chattanooga, down at Howard, Booker T. Washington High School down there,
Yeah.
he was wanting to get his master's degree from AU, Alabama University. And so he came and Mr. Clay told him about it. So he took that same idea and wrote his thesis on it, got his degree. Well, then President Hale came along. He said, Nash, he said, this woman, Alexander there, said, now, can you do without her? I said, yes, I guess I could. He said, well, I want her. I said, all right, take her. He sent me to Sarah Versa, just graduated that year. And so he took her over there. I think she worked in the college 1 year. And Mr. Turner, who was the Negro supervisor of the state, black supervisor, he was a white man, of course, but he was a black supervisor. And he took her and put her from end to end. She drove up and down until she retired about 4 or 5 years ago.
So you really originated, actually, this on-the-job training, which today we have so much, and you kind of started up there out of necessity. How long did those two buildings that were built, this dormitory life, how long did you have to continue the dormitory life?
Well, I continued that on until I left. And
I see.
It closed when I left in '53. And so, you see, we would work that, you see, we had one for boys and one for girls. And we had a teacher, we'd give them a room in it, you see. And we had as high as 24 students up there at one time. That is 12 in each one. And then a room for the matron. And so it went on until I left over there, and Mr. Johnson didn't want to carry it on any longer, so he stopped.
He closed the dormitories.
Yes. Now we had buses running all the way from, we had one bus, came all the way from Menor City. and bring the children down later on, you see now. Just when I got those rooms, we didn't have any buses, except our bus coming from Charleston.
Right.
And the other way.
Yeah, students from North Carolina.
And so then we had students from Winslow, North Carolina. And I want to say this.
All right.
You're talking about bootlegging, but the board allowed me to do more bootlegging than any bootlegger in the mount over here in Star Mountain. Now here's what I mean.
All right.
There's the laws, city, the state, and all, that if a child comes across the line, he's supposed to pay, you know.
Yes, sir.
I had children, all those people out there, nobody ever paid a dime. We had them from Meigs County and from Monroe County. When Monroe County put on their bowl, 4-year high school, we turned over 19 11th and 12th grades that we had the year before, that we were having down here, and board didn't.
And they didn't ever charge you, didn't have to pay.
Never
Well,
paid a dime.
again, I think that this points what that I have said before. I don't believe that it would have happened to many people except to W.E. Nash. I guess maybe that's you had the first job training, maybe you were the first fellow to ever bootleg education. I think that worked all right too. I think it was interesting that out of this school and following your tenure there,
Of
that
course, pardon me, they knew what was going on.
Well, no, they did,
I didn't
but-
hide anything. So.
they just let you have it, but it wouldn't have happened if it hadn't have been you. I don't think many others could have had that get by with it. They did it because you were known and you were established and you were doing something that the people needed. That was the thing.
Yeah,
of it.
that's right.
You were doing something that was needed, and it proved later when your successor, E. Harper Johnson,
Yeah.
now deceased,
Yeah.
went on to make a good name for himself and in the field of education, and the Tennessee Education Association established the Humanities
Yes.
Award, and you were the first recipient. And that, I think that really says a whole lot for this work that you've done. I know that the field of education has been your life, and I know that's what the people think of you as an educator, and that's the way that it should have been. But you've influenced some others. Professor Nash, I remember very well when in World War II that metal and iron and scrap was needed. That seems strange today when we're talking about now what we're going to do with our waste and bury nuclear waste, but it hasn't always been like this. And I remember that we were going to have a scrap iron drive. And again, you came to my office and you said, we may not be able to get out here like the others, but if you will just let us hold our own scrap iron drive, and you centralized it from the school, and you worked, and on the afternoon when we brought all of the scrap iron into the courthouse square, you came out here leading the procession, and I don't remember whether you had 2 or 3 heaping trucks of scrap iron. Those are the deeds that you have done behind the scenes that has influenced.
I thank you for remembering that.
It's been a lot. By the way, I don't want to wear you out, and I want. There's a chapter here that we never. I've listened to 1 or 2 of the people that have interviewed you and talked to you, and some of them have done a good job. And I don't want, but there's one chapter that we haven't said much about. And I know the importance of a good companion. And Bill Gribbin over here from Tennessee Wesleyan, who is got us on video and cassette this afternoon to record this, he knows the value of a good companion. Tell me a little bit about where you met, quote unquote, as we knew and loved her, Miss Willie, your wife so long, and she played an important part in this community.
Very much so.
Tell me a little bit about her.
Well, I came from Oxford College in 1917, and I met her there. Now, she has a better background even than I mean, touching background. In 1892, her parents went to Marianna, Arkansas, down there in the swamps, you know, and she was born, and they died before she was a year old. And she was sent to Meridian, Mississippi, where she was brought up there with her grandparents to 9 years old. Well, and no, not 9, about 6. And they died. That is, the parents, the grandparents, both the wife and the husband. But they had a number of boys who were married. That is, in the family.
Yes, sir.
And so from 6 years old to 12 years old, she just went from one family, if this family would have a baby today, well, she'd go there now and stay with that one. Just a little fella, you see.
Yes, sir.
And another little one next week or next year or something like that. But anyhow, she just moved around among those elderly uncles and aunts with looking after the babies until she was 12 years old. And at 12 years old, she was sent over to Forest City, Arkansas, with her aunt. She had an aunt there, and her aunt kept her there then until she got through high school. And she was an expert cotton picker. Just she's small, but she could drag a bag, they say in it. And so she picked cotton. And one of the men said, used the language that she used to use, he used to say, this little nigger is going somewhere. And so then she went back down to her uncle after she was 20 years old, I guess, something like that. And he kept her down there 5 years. During that 5 years, she worked for a doctor. And the doctor said that she has potential of a good nurse. And he said, I'll see that she gets in the hospital here. It was Manny Hershey Hospital in Meridian, Mississippi. And so she, this doctor, Dr. Sherry, fine a black man as I've ever met, he got her in there, and so she put 2 years in there. But she was kind of feeble, not very heavy, and she just couldn't hardly do she had 40 patients.
Mercy.
Have a row down between them, 20 on this side and 20 on this side, and some of them are in Louisiana, and they're all patients free, you know.
Yes.
And so she had a good friend in the person of Miss Mary Key, and Mary Key finished at Knoxville College Hospital. Knoxville College had a little hospital.
I see.
And Mary Key finished this hospital, and she went back home.
They didn't have much theory at that other hospital.
Yeah, they had practice there, but they didn't have any theory to mount anything.
I see.
And of course, it just worked a little fella to death, you see. And so when she went back, she told her about this Knoxville College, and in 1917, she got there in, well, I didn't get there in October. She come in the first of the season, and I was student foreman. You see, I was given that job. Was requested by the president. He requested. You see, the war was on, you know.
Yes, sir.
And I was in class A1 and was supposed to go, and he went out to the board and requested that I stay there and be student foreman. So I was student foreman. And of course I had charge of the hospital and everywhere with I said I worked 5, 10, maybe 10, 15 boys an evening, you know.
Right.
And so I took a bunch of boys down there one day, and this little fellow, she was small, didn't weigh but 105 pounds, didn't weigh that much harder. But anyhow, I met her at the hospital as a student nurse, and so we dated around there and so she finished in 1919, and she went home and told them all she's coming back to Knoxville. And so she came back to Knoxville then, and did private nursing there, and I didn't finish at 21. See, she just had 2 years, and I had 4 years.
Right.
And so she did this home nursing, what they call private duty nurses, you see. And here's what she did. She opened up the General Hospital to black nurses. A black man did a little meddling, according to the way this other fellow thought, in the hotel. He was a bellboy.
Mm-hmm.
And the man shot him up, as the boy said. And so Dr. Green, who was over he was black, he was over the little hospital out there. So he recommended that this Willie Nash, Willie Pearson at that time, would work with this boy. And so when she went in, the lady said, well, we never had any colored nurses here. Said, do you think you can do the work? Well, she said, did Dr. Green recommend me? She told her yes. Well, she said, well, I'll take you on, she said, well, you let them try. And if I don't, I'll get a job somewhere else, something like that. So, not boasting, you know, just said that you can give me a chance and let's see whether I can. And so she took a hold of that job there, and she brought that man around. He got well enough to leave. The head nurse didn't want her to leave. And so she told, well, she was working with Dr. Green, kind of in private nursing, and therefore she would have to leave. Well, she said, if you have any more black nurses, of course we called them colored at that time, colored nurses, well, send them around. And she worked those 2 years on Kingston Pike. That is, those people down Kingston Pike used her as a nurse. And so when we married, after I finished and came down here, she went right to work down here.
Well, she was quite a person within her own rights, and she did a good job. I remember at the entire community loved. She implemented and supplemented your work, and you worked together. You were a team. She was about, I wouldn't be surprised with what she was about the first RN in Athens.
She was the first RN.
She was the first RN in Athens, and it has.
She started at Torrey Hospital.
Yes, you really had it. How much time do we have, Mr. Gribbin? About 5 minutes. Professor, we have had a great time, and we could reminisce, I guess, but I think you have touched some of the highlights, and it will show the people your contribution to this community. How old are you now?
I'm in my 95th year.
95th year. And you've been in our midst ever since 1921.
Correct.
And all of those years have been fruitful years, sometimes struggling, but you have made friends, you've cooperated, you've been distinguished, and we're grateful. And I want to say just a sentence as we close here in your
I
home.
want to say
The meeting at Keith Church, the integration meeting at Keith Church.
I want to say while we're talking that you have been an inspiration to me and a great help in the work that we've talked about.
Well,
A great help. You organized a high Y over there for us.
I was privileged to do that, and
I don't
we.
want it to go unsaid that you
Well, that's all right. This is your day. I appreciate your friendship, and we have shared this friendship through the years, and you've been a team person, and you've been a good one, and we are just delighted that you could do it, and we thank you for letting us come. I want to thank your niece, Mrs. McClure. Ms. Elma McClure. She has a fine family herself. In the paper, I've had the privilege of recognizing some of her folks, her children, and they've made their mark in the community, and we're proud of that, and it's good. And I guess that we've about used up our cassette over here, and I'm sure that they've never had two finer looking fellas than we've been, and we've about run out of that film too. So I just want to say, Professor Nash, it's been indeed a pleasure, and we are signing off, and we'll keep you and record you in history as you made history in our midst. And this is Neal Ensminger saying goodbye.
Thank you so much.